History doesn't begin with battles, it begins with a vision. This is the story of three men: a father, Errol Gazi, who led with honor; a son, Osman Gazi, who dreamed of a new world; and a grandson, Orhan Gazi, who turned that dream into an empire. Together, they didn't just conquer land, they built the Ottoman Empire, a legacy that changed history forever. The late 12th and early 13th centuries were a time of chaos. The Mongol invasions ripped through the Islamic world, crushing kingdoms, burning cities, and leaving behind only ruins. The once proud Seljuk Empire was now a fractured relic. Anatolia, a battleground of tribes and fading empires. And in this storm, out of the shadows, rose a man, Errol Gazi, leader of the Kayu tribe, a small but courageous group of Turkic nomads. Driven from their homeland, the Kayu wandered in search of sanctuary, justice, and opportunity. Errol was more than a tribal chief. He was a man of insight and vision. Where others saw despair, he saw divine guidance. Where others feared death, he saw destiny. He aligned himself with the Seljuks of Rum, aiding them in battle against their enemies. In return, he was granted lands on the frontier, a rugged, untamed territory between Christian Byzantium and the Muslim East, the borderland. But Errol was not content with survival. He believed in something greater, a future built on Islamic values, Turkish unity, and a righteous cause. He became known not for cruelty, but for justice, not for domination, but for dignity. He led his people not with an iron fist, but with wisdom and piety. And when he passed away in the 1290s, likely of natural causes, the mourning was profound, but so too was the hope. For Errol left behind not just land, he left behind a mission. Among Errol's sons stood one who would fulfill that mission, a man whose very name would become the identity of a future empire, Osman. Osman Gazi was no ordinary heir. He was a man of deep belief and extraordinary vision. According to Ottoman legend, one night, he dreamed a dream so powerful, it would forever define his destiny. In that dream, a moon rose from his chest and became a giant tree, its branches stretching across the world, its roots piercing the earth, its shadow covering all lands. This vision was seen as more than symbolic. It was understood as a divine sign that Osman was chosen to establish a kingdom ordained by heaven. Inspired, Osman set out to carve his own path. He rejected the old allegiances, challenged fading powers, and began building a new order. With tactical brilliance, he captured forts and towns, formed alliances with neighboring tribes, and laid the foundation of a new political entity. Not just a tribe, but a state. Osman was a warrior, yes, but also a lawgiver, a reformer, a spiritual leader. For over 4 decades, he led his people through war, growth, and faith. But even the strongest leaders are not spared by time. Toward the end of his life, Osman suffered a severe illness, possibly paralysis, that left him confined to his bed. Yet even then, his mind remained sharp. His heart still burned with purpose. And in his final act, he entrusted everything to his son, Orhan, his successor, his hope, his chosen heir. Osman passed away around 1324 or 1326, not in battle, but peacefully, surrounded by his people. He was buried in Bursa, the city he dreamed would one day serve as the heart of the Ottoman world. And with his death, the dream became a dynasty. Orhan Gazi inherited more than a throne. He inherited a vision, and he inherited it at a moment when history was ready to shift. The world Orhan entered was still unstable. Anatolia remained fractured, and rival factions still threatened unity. But Orhan was not merely a warrior like his father or grandfather, he was a builder. Within just 2 years of Osman's passing, Orhan captured Bursa and made it the Ottoman capital. But he didn't just occupy the city, he transformed it. He built mosques, schools, and administrative institutions, shaping a true capital that would serve as the model of Ottoman governance. He also revolutionized the military. Where earlier leaders relied on tribal warriors, Orhan created the first standing army in Ottoman history. From this would rise the janissaries, elite forces trained not just for war but for discipline, loyalty, and statehood. Then, in the 1350s, nature opened a door. A devastating earthquake struck a Byzantine city. Orhan saw an opportunity and seized it. For the first time, Ottoman soldiers crossed into Europe. It was a moment that marked the true birth of empire. By the time Orhan died at the age of 60, the Ottomans were no longer a regional power. They were a force with a trained military, a functioning state, and an expanding vision.